Hello everybody, Jake here and welcome to the hobby. In today's video, we're talking about market manipulation, true market manipulation, which is actually kind of rare. We got ourselves some Pokemon cards that are actually being truly market manipulated, and we can actually see that in the data, which I think is really neat. And it'll be interesting to see how these play out because some people are absolutely buying out certain cards, and I want to understand how that will turn out to them because usually it doesn't work out very well. I'll tell you, card buyouts rarely work out well for the people that are doing the buyouts, and there's a bunch of different reasons for that, but usually a lot of people will blame all kinds of things as market manipulation. Whenever they see a card climbing in value, it's almost automatically saying, oh, this card's being manipulated, that card's being market manipulated, when usually it's due to other reasons. It's due to FOMO, hype, speculation, or just some good old-fashioned herd mentality. And those are not the same as true market manipulation. When a card is truly being market manipulated, it means someone or a group of people out there is literally buying out all these cards for the sole purpose of them climbing up in value. And we can see that with this Drowzee card, which used to be, you know, like a $50 card in a PSA 10 for most of last year. And now it's currently going for $750, which is absolutely insane because that is a 1,500% price jump from 6 to 7 months ago. And we are seeing a kind of similar example with the singles copy. In early December to late December, they were going for right around $15. This card used to be a $5 card. I remember I actually have multiple copies of this card, by the way, and I think I pulled them from Scarlet and Violet base, and they used to go for actually $2 or $3 even. And I remember telling people illustration rares, especially like the really cool ones, even back in the day, were way too affordable. And this card should probably be a little bit more expensive than $3 or $4, but realistically, even $15 is more reasonable than where it's currently at, which is this Drowzee is the most expensive card inside of all of Scarlet and Violet base, and it's really due to the buyout and market manipulation of Tomokazu Komiya cards. Tomokazu Komiya is the artist for these cards, and he's a very veteran artist, by the way. Komiya has been drawing for the Pokemon Company for 30 years, and they really haven't gotten enough recognition, honestly, because Komiya has actually drawn some of my favorite arts, and I'll show you guys some of those cards later, that haven't really been touched too much, and that's completely fair, because Komiya is not as well known as other major artists. I think like the big artists would be like Mitsuhiro Urita, Ken Sugimori, but Komiya cards are getting bought out, and specifically it's this Drowzee, very unique, as well as this Baxcalibur. Same kind of scenario, massive buyouts of this card, and I wanted to talk specifically about what occurs when a card gets bought out, what should you do if you own the card, and what should you do if you don't own the cards, because same scenario, this card used to be like a $50 card in a PSA 10, and now it's currently going for only $300 in a PSA 10, which is not nearly the same level of climb as this somber Drowzee. And if you're also curious what kind of app that I'm currently using to track this data so well, I'm currently using the Collectr app, which is my go-to app for tracking my whole entire Pokemon card collection, as well as just reviewing the market data. Collectr is super useful for tracking my whole entire collection. I can see a bunch of other popular content creators and other collector showcases as well. So I can see a bunch of people, what they currently have inside of their collection, which I think is super duper cool. And if you'd like to see my whole entire collection, you can actually check it all out on the Collectr app. You can see every single card I own inside of my whole entire collection, and it's just not just Pokemon cards, because you can also see all of the sealed products that I have as well. Super cool app, and the great thing about this data is that they show you everything on a single page, the population reports of cards, the PSA grades, the condition of card. You can track every single thing about cards, and it is super cool and easy to use. And one of the wild thing that I've noticed about my collection is the pretty rapid price climb, and this really showcases the hype in the hobby so far, because according to Collectr, my collection has gone up by $45,000 in terms of value over the past 6 months. That's a 37% return in the last 6 months, which is absolutely insane. I really haven't added a lot of cards to my collection over the past 6 months. I've added a card here or there, a piece here or there, but in general, my collection hasn't really changed that much. So this is purely cards that I've owned for years inside of my collection, just jumping up in value. And that's pretty wild to, pretty much make someone's total income for the whole entire year in the course of 6 months purely from the value of my collection increasing. So if you want to keep track of your collection and see the latest data on all of your Pokemon cards, definitely check out Collectr. Super useful app. Follow me on Collectr and you can see my whole entire collection. And of course, you can roast me if you want to talk about why I have some lame cards inside of my collection and not the Umbreon V Max. So what happens when a card is being market manipulated? What should you do when this occurs? My first recommendation is that if I have a copy of this Drowzee, which I do, I should probably go sell it. Because now this card is, according to the market, worth $80. But I don't know if anyone will actually honor that. If I'm a vendor or a store that sells TCG cards, I don't think I'm going to buy this Drowzee at $80. I will probably say that I'm willing to go in at $40. I think that's the price I'm willing to buy this card at instead of the $80. But if you know a store that's willing to buy it for $80, well, that's really on them, and that's really, really, really wild, especially if you just happen to have a PSA 10 copy of this card, because if it's gone up 1,500% in the course of 6 months, that's a large signal to sell this card, honestly. And honestly, a lot of people say, like, why would you recommend selling this card? Because if you can sell this card for $750, you can now buy a lot of other cards, and I think a lot of other cards are probably better than this Drowzee for $750. So it just depends. But if you own this card, I would say when a card is being market manipulated like this, I would just say, sweet, I'm just going to take it. So that's the first thing I would do. If you don't own this card, I would say you probably don't want it inside of your collection anyway, because you've had years to buy this card. If you didn't pick up this card for $5 6 months ago, you probably aren't going to pick it up for $80 now. So that's the mentality I would go into it, is that if you don't own this card, you probably didn't want it anyway. And if you did want it, you probably should have picked it up 6 months ago. And if you couldn't pick it up 6 months ago because you weren't in the hobby yet, that's also okay. Just don't own this card. It's not that big of a deal. You don't need to have this card or this card inside of your collection or any of the other Komiya cards inside of your collection. So that's what I would say. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because when you market manipulate a card up in terms of price like this, it takes you multiple days to acquire all these cards. It takes you a long time to get all the copies of these cards. And what usually happens is the market slowly self-corrects, is that unless you keep buying the cards that are put on the market will self-correct slowly. What will happen is people like me who have this card inside of their collection will try to offload it at card shows and at vendors and at marketplaces. A lot of people are simply going to list this card on places like TCG Player, because guess what? If you can double or triple or quadruple your money on PSA 10s or raw copies, that's what you're going to do, is just take that deal. So it'll be interesting, because usually people who market manipulate like this and buy out cards end up getting burned, because they're buying the card as it goes up in value, and they have to keep buying the cards because there's so many copies of these Drowzees on the market. People are going to flood the market, and the prices should self-correct. But I don't know that for sure. We'll have to see how this plays out, because who knows, maybe the people who are market manipulating these cards have way deeper pockets, and these cards keep climbing to $500 or $600. But then that's just more money that they're burning on their end. Some other good Komiya cards that I've noticed over the years obviously includes the Scream Psyduck. Really obviously Komiya's art style. Very, very cool card. This is a card that I would say is actually organically growing in value. It's just been, a spectacular card. I still think for $2,000, there are better PSA 10 copies than this specific Psyduck card. This Eevee and Snorlax, another Komiya card, is starting to make some serious waves. Very, very interesting. It's a love it or hate it kind of art style. If you don't like Komiya's art style, that is not surprising. Lots of people don't like Komiya's art style, but if you like them, then you like them. It is a really cool card. This card, I think, actually is seeing some serious, honest to goodness growth. It's a promo card that was available inside of a tin. I have this card inside of my collection, raw, but it is a really cool PSA 10 too. I don't own it in a PSA 10. It is kind of hard to get PSA 10 copies of some of these older cards. I think this card would be cooler to have inside of my collection as a PSA 10 than really like any of the other cards that are worth thousands of dollars, because this is actually kind of rare. It is actually kind of hard to find that card in PSA 10. And obviously, probably one of the most famous Komiya card is this Ban Moo Moo Milk card. Very, very weird card. Banned because it looks super weird. I'll be honest, I don't even know what it's the showcasing, because it's just like a weird cow contraption and a Sentret or another Pokemon like getting milk. It's a very weird card. It's banned for, just being provocative and weird. But this is how old Komiya is. They've been drawing for the Pokemon Company for over 30 plus years. And some other Komiya cards that are pretty well known but not super popular include this Galarian Slowking. It had a little bit of a climb mid last year and seeing another climb now, but not nearly to the same level. So this is a true natural climb up. And let's see this card in a PSA 10. PSA 10 copies of it are starting to climb, but even then, this card is still significantly more affordable than really any of the other cards on this list. So is it possible for this card to go up to $700? That'll be interesting to see. But this Galarian Slowking, I know, is not super duper popular. I don't even know what's in here. This kind of looks like it's supposed to be words or something. Very, very interesting art style that Komiya has. Another one that's, I think, is a Komiya favorite is this Oricorio. Hasn't been market manipulated at all. Still a $1 card throughout its whole entire life. Is it going to be a $30 or $50 card at some point? I don't think so. But who knows if the market tries to manipulate it or not. And another interesting card, an example of a market manipulation that's gone wrong, would be this Charizard GX. Interesting little spike here. Went from being a $500 card to a $1,200 card. I'm going to say that that's just data error. It probably is just a $500 raw card. But the BGS Black Label copies of this card, yeah, this one is an interesting story where this card used to be a $10,000 card in a BGS Black Label, which is very, very expensive, because I think the PSA 10's copies of this card are only going for, $500 or $600, $700 right now. So it's starting to slowly climb because of the recent hype. But it's not a very expensive card. But in a BGS Black Label, it was going for $10,000. And a lot of people were simply, if a card is worth $10,000 as a Black Label, you would crack open all of your PSA 10 copies and just grade it at BGS. Because if you get even just one Black Label, it's completely worth it. Because your card goes from being a $500 card to a $10,000 card, and that's a 20x multiplier on the value of the card. So that's what happened to this card. It was completely overgraded in a BGS Black Label. There's hundreds and hundreds of copies of this card in a Black Label, and it tanked the market. So now this card in a Black Label is only going for $4,000. So this is what happens when cards get market manipulated, or someone tries to hold the value of a card, because someone tried to keep this card at 10 grand, and the market eventually won out. They just couldn't cover all the cards at 10 grand. Pretty much is what happened to this card. Another really good artist that kind of has the same art as Komiya would be Shinji Kanda, which I mentioned earlier, I think. Shinji Kanda has a bunch of really cool cards with the Giratina V. Super popular. Shinji Kanda hasn't been drawing for Pokemon for very long. They don't have a ton of cards, but every single card that they draw is usually a big hitter. Obviously, we got ourselves the Magikarp, another big hitter. And the only other Shinji Kanda card that I think is super, super cool, and probably the next big one to pop off, would probably be the Roaring Moon EX. This card's still very flatline, but if you know Shinji Kanda cards, I think this one is one that will naturally climb in value. I don't think this card is just going to randomly spike to being a $1,000 card. But the Roaring Moon EX inside of Prismatic Evolution is very, very cool. Outside of the Evolution ones, this one's very cool. It's already going for $1,000 in a PSA 10. Which is absolutely wild. So this is a true case of market manipulation. I wanted to bring it up to you guys. If you want to track how cards look and how their prices impact the market, try out Collectr. I'm going to be watching the prices on this Drowzee, this Baxcalibur, as well as all of the other Komiya cards, and just see how they turn out over the next couple of months. It's very possible that these two are the only first two examples. And if herd mentality takes over, which is other people who are not involved inside of this market manipulation push, could say, wait a second, if all Komiya cards are being bought out right now, then I should pick up some of their cards. And that's how speculation and herd mentality can take over. And so it becomes from being a few bad actors to the whole entire market moving in a wave. And I really hope that doesn't happen, because if that does happen, then the people who market manipulated these cards do actually win out, because they've actually impacted the market and they set a new anchor price for these cards and say, hey, these cards are now standardized at $90 or $100 for a raw card and $750 for a graded card. And when that occurs and everyone agrees and accepts that, that's when the market manipulators win. So the way that the market manipulators don't win is when these cards get sold on the market at these exorbitant prices and the prices tank and the market manipulators are left holding the bag. So it will be interesting to see where that turns out. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are on these cards being bought out. I've never seen artist-specific cards being bought out to this extent before, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.